So you don't know what ISO 27001 risk assessment is, you don't know why would you use it in the first place. So in this video I'll show you what a risk assessment methodology is, what is risk management, what are the steps in risk assessment, and what are the risk treatment options. And I'll also show you how to use risk register using an ISO 27001 software. And after watching this video, you'll have a very clear idea on what ISO 27001 does require and does not require when it comes to risk assessment and treatment. And you'll learn how to avoid, spending unnecessary time for performing this step. And I made this video for beginners who are doing this risk assessment and treatment for the first time. So I'll explain the whole topic in a very easy to understand language. And to learn more about ISO 27001, you can subscribe to my YouTube channel by clicking the button below. So what is risk management? It basically consists of two parts, risk assessment and risk treatment. So risk assessment is where you actually find out which risks can happen or which bad things can happen to your company. For example, you can lose your data, these kind of things. On the other hand, risk treatment, actually, this is where you find ways to fix these problems or to find ways to actually decrease these risks. And this risk management is actually a key concept in ISO 27001 because actually it determines not only which controls, which safeguards you have to use, but also how much of these safeguards you have to use. So for example, if you determine that you want to avoid the risk of losing data by applying the backup control, you can also determine, based on the risk assessment results, how often you have to perform this backup. And in effect, this risk management gives you actually I would say, a risk management framework for ISO 27001. So how to perform this risk management? Basically, there are 5 steps to do it according to ISO 27001. The first step is to define the risk assessment methodology. So this is a document where you define the rules on how you're going to do the risk assessment and also the risk treatment. And I'll speak about it in a minute or two in this video. The second part, or the second step, is to perform the risk assessment itself. So this is where you actually have to list the risks, and find out how big these risks are. And I'll also give you some of the examples a bit later on. And the third step is to find the risk treatment or define risk treatment. This is where you actually find which controls, which safeguards you have to apply to decrease these risks. And then as the fourth step, you have to write this document called Statement of Applicability. So basically, Statement of Applicability lists all the controls from the Annex A, and there you define which controls are applicable and which are not, mainly using the inputs from your risk treatment, where you defined actually which controls you need in the first place. And finally, the fifth step is to define this risk treatment plan. So the risk treatment plan is basically an implementation plan on how you plan to implement these controls that are not implemented yet. So let's say that in the statement of applicability you have marked, let's say, 85 controls as applicable out of 93 that are possible, and that out of these 85 you already implemented 65 prior to your ISO 27001 project. This means that you still have to implement 20 controls as part of your project. And these 20 controls you have to specify in the risk treatment plan. Who is responsible for them? What is the budget? What are the human resources needed, and so on. So what kind of methodology to use for a risk assessment to perform this according to ISO 27001? Basically, this standard specifies the 5 minimum elements that you need to have for risk assessment. The first one is to identify the risks. This is also called risk identification. This is where you have to list all the controls. The second one is that you have to define risk owners for each of these risks. So basically, these are the people who are responsible for these risks to be monitored and also to be ultimately resolved. The third and the fourth element are assessing the impact and the likelihood of the risks. So basically, how high these risks are, meaning how likely is it that they're going to happen, and also what is their consequence to the confidentiality, integrity, and availability if these risks really materialize. And this impact and likelihood is also called risk analysis. And finally, the fifth element is that you have to calculate or determine the level of risks. So this is usually done by actually multiplying or adding impact and likelihood. So if the impact is, let's say, 3 on the scale from 1 to 5, and if likelihood is, let's say, 4 on the scale of 1 to 5, then multiplication would be 3 times 4, 12. The result would be, the risk would be 12 according to this multiplication method. Or if you use addition method, 3 plus 4 would be 7 for the risk level. Now, 27001 does not specify which of these methods you should use. You can actually use any of these methods that you find appropriate. And this whole methodology is also fully aligned with ISO 27005, which is the standard that gives you more details about how to manage risks, even though it's actually not mandatory for ISO 27001. Now, the idea here is that if you are a smaller company, you should actually go for these minimum 5 elements. You should not try to push any other elements into this risk management, because this will only take you additional time and additional, let's say, resources to do it. Of course, if you're a larger company, then you might add some other elements, like value of assets, a more complex way of assessing the impact and likelihood. But again, this is only applicable if you are a larger, more complex organization. So how do you do this risk identification? How do you list all the risks? Now, what I'll present you is this so-called asset-based methodology, which is not mandatory according to ISO 27001, but is, I would say, the mainstream, the most commonly used methodology. It's used by, let's say, 90% of the companies, so 9 out of 10. And it's also preferred one for for the certification auditors, which are usually expecting this kind of method to be used. So this asset-based methodology means that you have to list all of your risks and then all the related threats and vulnerabilities to these risks. So let me give you a couple of examples. Let's say that you have a physical server, so a hardware as an asset, then a threat might be, let's say, fire, and vulnerability, which is basically something that enables this threat to materialize, is that you, let's say, have a lack of anti-fire suppression systems. Okay. Now, another example of asset could be, let's say, some kind of a software that you're using. Now, the threat to the software could be a virus, and the vulnerability would be that you do not have any antivirus software. An example of an asset also could be your employees, your people. And then the threat here could be that, let's say that this one person who is very important for a company leaves the company, and vulnerability would be that there is no replacement for this person. So basically, assets could be, people, hardware, software, data, of course, infrastructure, meaning, let's say, uninterruptible power systems, cables, these kind of things. When it comes to risk analysis, here are a couple of examples of the scales that you can use for analyzing your risks. So you can use the scales from 1 to 5, as already explained. So in this case, 1 could be, let's say, very low, and then 2 low, 3, let's say, medium, 4 high, and 5 would be very high. You could also use even simpler scales like low, medium, and high, so only three items there. Or you could use some larger scales like 1 to 10 or something like this. Again, if you're a smaller company, you should go for the minimum. That is because it is quicker for you. Whereas again, if you're a larger company, you might go for a bit bigger scales because they give you more precision, but they also take more time to assess. Okay, to sum it all up, I'll show you now the risk assessment template. And here in this template, you can actually see that it usually consists of several columns. So asset, risk owner, threat, vulnerability, level of impact, level of likelihood, and finally the risk. And here in these rows, you can see a couple of examples. So let's say you have this server, physical server, you have the owner, electricity outage as a threat, and then that there is no UPS, uninterruptible power supply as the vulnerability, and then you have this assessment of impact and likelihood, and finally the calculation of risk. In this case, this would be 4 plus 2 equals 6. You can also see some other threats and vulnerabilities for the same asset, and then you can see some other assets like contract, meaning this is the let's say the paper document, and you also see the owner and threat and vulnerability, which are of course different for this asset than the assets before. So basically, this is how you usually perform risk assessment, and this is usually the output from the risk assessment process. Now, these outputs are actually input into the risk treatment process. So the risks which were acceptable during the risk assessment, meaning that they're low enough not to be treated, are not going further into risk treatment, whereas the risks that are not acceptable, meaning they're too high, they're actually going further into this risk treatment process. And actually each company for itself defines in the methodology what is the acceptable level of risk. In this case, from this risk assessment template, you can actually see that the risks of up to the level of 6 are acceptable, whereas risks 7 and higher are not acceptable. Okay, so what are the options for risk treatment? Essentially there are 4 options. The first one is really to apply appropriate controls from the Annex A. So as I already mentioned, there are 93 controls from the Annex A. Of course, you can also add some other controls that are, let's say, that you see fit. You can also avoid the risk by basically changing the way you do things in your company. So let's say that you have your employees who are using their own devices when working remotely. And if you find that these risks are simply not acceptable, that they're too high, you can actually tell them that they will have to use company devices to work remotely, and therefore you simply avoid the risk of their using their own devices. Now, there is also a method of transferring the risk to a third party. So, for example, if you have a physical, let's say, server or a laptop or something, you can insure these assets against the risks of, let's say, theft or fire or something like this. And then you can actually transfer this risk, at least this financial risk, towards the insurance company. And finally, you can also accept the risks, which is obviously not very, let's say, good option, but in some cases this is also acceptable. So in case you have, let's say, biggest, let's say, potential impact or damage from a risk, let's say $30,000, but if you find out that the controls, the cost of actually controls to mitigate this risk are, let's say, $50,000. In this case, it doesn't make really sense to spend $50,000 to actually prevent a $30,000 damage, in which case you can actually accept the risk. Okay, and once you define a risk treatment option for each of your unacceptable risks, then you have to assess these residual risks. Basically, these are the risks that remain after you apply these risk treatment options. And in most cases, you will actually be able to decrease the impact and decrease the likelihood. So this is what is part of your assessment of residual risks. Okay, how is this risk assessment and treatment done in real life? So I'll show you now some examples of ISO 27001 risk register using the software called Conformio. Okay, so this risk register actually shows you on the top here several steps that you have to go through. So listing first the assets, and then vulnerabilities, and then threats. You have to evaluate them, review the risks, define the treatment, and then approve. So this is what I'll shortly show you how it works. So for assets, you see these kind of catalogs of potential assets. And you simply have to click the ones that are applicable for you. So you already have here, you can see some pre-filled items. You can also, let's say, add something like this. And then you move on to the next step, where you have to select the vulnerabilities. And again, the software already suggests you several vulnerabilities for each of the assets that you had, so that you actually can move on much more quickly. Of course, you have to select the ones that you think are the most appropriate. Once you move on to the next step, this is threats. Here you have to select again the threats that are relevant for the vulnerabilities that you selected. And you can see, for example, you can select something like this, and then move on to the next one. And here now you have to assess the level of impact and likelihood. So as you can see, here we have these impact and likelihood. You also have the explanation what each of these levels mean. And then you have to fill out, whatever you feel is appropriate So in this case you might have different combinations, and then automatically the risks are displayed as acceptable or not acceptable. Once you click next, you actually go to the step of review. This is where probably the risk manager or the security manager, if you have review all the risks and see if they're fine. You click select all, mark all risks as reviewed, and then you move on into the next step, which is the treatment. And here, for each of these risks which are not acceptable, now in the risk treatment phase, you will see which risk treatment options does this software suggest you. So in this case, decreasing the risks using safeguards and also transferring the risk, and also which controls are let's say relevant for this particular risk. And you can again add some new controls, or you can throw out some of these controls here. And what is important, the residual risks is automatically calculated based on the number of controls and the let's say quality of these controls. And once you do this, you simply click on next. You will go to this approval phase, and this is where the risks are sent to risk owners for approval. Okay, I hope this was helpful, and you can sign up for a free trial of Conformio by clicking this button here, and you can then explore how to do the risk assessment and treatment in real life yourself.